So they're getting 20 hours of lecture, direct instruction, and you're going to get 12. 6 times 2 is 12, right?
Yeah.
You're getting 12, okay? There will be, if you're interested in units, we'll work with University of San Diego to get a couple units out of it for $150, which means that you'll need to, you'll see tonight, log into Google Classroom, and you'll have to do the homework. And then there's some things that are going on in your own classroom. So that's a third of it. What you're doing in your class is the lab, what you're doing in homework, and here. We need a total of 30 hours in order to get 2 units. So that's how we put it all together. There's 12 of them are just here right now. Again, my name is Steve Thornton. Among other things, I also run the PAR program. And since I don't know any of you and never heard of you, you aren't there yet, so that's a good thing.
Congratulations.
PAR, we have 2 versions. One's voluntary PAR for the teachers to just say, hey, I need some help, and you come alongside and help. And another is that your evaluation says that you're in mandatory PAR. And that's a whole other system at work, and I'm in charge of that as well. So, but we won't talk about that because you're not going to be there. Let me know, though, who you are and what you teach and how many years you've been teaching. And we'll start over here with
My name is Sean Morrow. I teach at George
Sean,
Washington.
what was the last name?
Morrow.
Morrow.
Yes.
Okay.
I teach at George Washington. I teach 3rd grade, and it's my 10th year teaching.
Did you know that you have the best preschool teacher at Washington in the entire state?
I believe it.
Oh, wow.
Did you guys know that?
No.
Brianna Thornton? Brianna Thornton? Steve Thornton?
Oh, Steve Thornton, yeah.
Tell her I said that.
I will.
Yeah.
3rd
That's all
grade.
serious. I was like, really?
Washington.
Yes.
And I know she teaches there.
3rd grade in Washington. That's a tough grade, huh?
Yeah, I taught 4th grade. I taught at a private school for 6 years, 4th grade, and now this is my 4th year in public and 3rd. So I'm used to that age, but
The Washington kids, when they learn that you love them, they'll run through a wall for you. Other kids at other sites, Alpha, what are you going to give me today? I ain't giving you nothing. But Washington, man, they're eager. So
yes.
Very great site. John, is that what you said?
Sean.
God, I remember it.
And I'm Deborah Gudier, and I teach at Monroe School, kindergarten. This is my 29th year.
Wow. Wow, okay. And how many more years
And
do you
I've
think
been at Monroe for 27 of them.
27. Wow. And are you, are you like 10 more years to go? A couple more years to go?
Well, I'm 52, so at 60, I should retire. If not sooner. But at the rate things are going, maybe sooner.
All right.
I'm Rachel Lopez. I'm the CNI at Sierra Vista. So I just joined the district in October.
Okay.
And this is my 7th year.
So what brought you here? I mean, you're not really, you have a little bit of class, but not a lot of class, and
It more to just get more information that I can then share with teachers and continue to help support teachers.
interesting.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Be careful, because we might make you a trainer, so be careful.
Whatever supports teachers, I'm always up for.
We don't get paid extra. She does. We don't get paid extra.
I got the gig right now.
We took the best of Fred Jones and Time to Teach and used a credentialing order. We mushed them together to make what we have today. So hopefully you'll see some things you're familiar with and other things you'll go, huh.
More tools.
Right?
My name is Stephanie Diaz. I teach 1st grade at Sierra Vista, and I've been teaching for 16 years.
Nice. You got a lot of leadership change at your side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it a lot since I've been.
Which school?
Sierra Vista.
Oh.
But you got 2 new site administrators this year. Your site, right?
Yes.
And you have, I want to think, it used to be Apodaca. What is it? Carrillo, right? Miss Carrillo is there now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always remember her, the other name, and I can't
I
remember.
know, yes, too, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And Miss Roche, right?
Right.
So she's new
Yeah.
at this, but not at your side.
She's been at Sierra Vista for about 2 years, you think? And she was CNI, and now she's.
And she used to work for me as a mentor. So
Oh.
about,
Oh, wow.
honestly, about half of the BEEPs in the district now have been in my program one way or another. It's crazy.
Okay, my name is Alida Lopez, and I teach first grade. This is my 15th year. I don't know where I became a veteran. I guess I must have had some fun along the way. Then all of a sudden I said, how long have I been teaching? I guess I must have fun, and I don't know, the fun's kind of stopping for me.
Aw,
And it's like, I don't know, so many changes,
right.
and I feel I need to go back and find that fun again to last me, because I'm just thinking 3 more years and then that's it.
Okay.
You
And
know?
what site?
Sierra Vista.
Sierra Vista? Okay.
Yes. So,
Very good. First grade.
yeah, first grade, and it's a fun grade. There's so much to do and teach and learn, but then other things make it not fun.
But did you know that kindergarten teachers see more body fluid than the doctors do?
I
Yeah, I believe it. I can tell you that. I could have told you that a long time ago.
We think it's funny to
Yes.
watch our brand new kindergarten teachers come in this pretty dress on the first
Oh, no.
day. It's not just their first
It's-
career, it's their
it's
first
first-
full-time job, right?
Yes.
And they're in the pretty dress, it's like third day, holy jeans and a t-shirt and whatever. Because they know there's all kinds of stuff going on, right?
That's right.
I taught kindergarten. Well, first I started in first grade and in Delano. And then I ended up getting
I didn't catch your name,
married.
I'm
And
sorry.
Cheryl Durant.
Cheryl Durant.
I went to Washington as well. When I teach fourth grade there.
Very good.
So I started off in Delano teaching first grade. And then I got married and moved to Fresno. I moved to Fresno, like he was. And then I taught kindergarten in sixth grade. And then I had our daughter and I stayed home. And I stayed home for 14 years.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up going back. My husband lost his job, and so I said, hey, let's see what's out there. So I was kind of in the middle of the year, so I got a SPED position. And I taught SPED for a couple years, actually. And then I decided that my real credential is in teaching in multiple subjects. So I went back to fourth grade, back to elementary, and I've been doing that. This is my second year.
Very good. Well, welcome. Jenny Taylor is our consultant, and she taught Avid in English and softball at Central High School, Central Unified. And I taught ELD English and history, and then I taught U.S. history and world history and economic civics, and then I've also taught the Casey English class, all at the high school level. I did have 1 year of sixth grade in Planada, and it was a block class.
I know Planada.
Right.
I went to Lee Grant High School.
There you go. And I taught a year at the
And
Grand.
I bet you don't read Martinelli.
I know Randy Lappin real well. Do you know Randy Lappin?
No, but I know Rita Martinelli.
Randy was the baseball coach, PE coach, biology teacher. He's been there for the last 30 years. He retired last spring.
I don't know, like 2 years ago, I believe.
Okay. Did she teach math?
Vino is a man.
Did he teach?
No, he was the principal for a long time at Planada,
Oh,
and a vice principal too.
I didn't. Okay, I didn't meet him. I didn't meet him. I had a because I was at Chavez Middle School,
Okay, there you go.
and there was a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade,
Okay.
so I didn't get a chance to meet him and stuff. But we had block classes, and they had my afternoon block class after lunch had 23 girls and 11 boys.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not pre-adolescent; they're pre-human. 6th grade, and they had grown up together, and girls. I don't hear them do this out there. Girls y'all are way different than boys, because if y'all get into a fight in the 4th grade, you're still fighting in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
7th grade. 2 boys fight in the 4th grade, and the next day they're playing basketball together because they're best friends again. You know, they punch it out and you got a bloody nose, and he hit me yesterday. Well, I'm gonna get him today. We're gonna play basketball, and they're good to go. I don't know. Whew, all the drama came into my classroom, and it took me a semester to wrestle control. I had to become a teacher I never wanted to be. It's so strict and by the book, but I learned you got to mean business, and we're going to learn that and talk about that. But, we talked about when we introduced this to our beginning teachers, we asked them to think back to their favorite teacher. So think back to your favorite teacher, and since everybody's elementary, think back to your elementary days, and, some of you have to go traveling back 30, 40 years, so. Who was your favorite elementary teacher, and think about what characters traits they had. And I'm gonna guess they were not the ones that allowed fun Fridays and chaos to reign in the classroom and everyone and trying to be Miss Popular or Mr. Popular, but that they had high expectations for behavior and high expectations for academics. And you were so not wanting to disappoint this teacher because you were either in love with them and wanted to please them or afraid of them, and if you brought in a B, they were going to chew you out, like Bill Cote. Y'all know Bill Cote?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you do what Bill Cote did in the classroom?
Oh, no.
Heck no. He's sarcasm like you wouldn't believe.
I resemble that.
But those kids loved him.
Yes, it did.
He's the only one that could get away with that.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else.
Me too.
But kids were afraid to do bad because he would just slice you up and dice you up and let you sit over there bleeding and then say, all right, you ready to get to work? And right? But your favorite teacher was probably one of those two. That you loved him so much you didn't want to disappoint him, or you were afraid of him so much you didn't want to disappoint him. And he challenged you behaviorally and academically beyond what you think you could handle. Is that pretty true?
Yeah.
Close? Our new teachers think that they need to be super nice in order to be respected in life. Does that work?
Yeah.
Nope.
Right?
Not even kindergarten does that work.
So I'm going to say something I told Jenny to tell you. I'm going to tell it to you now. And this is going to be hard to hear. Well, I'll ask it this way. How many rules do you have in your classroom? How many rules? Not procedures, not policies, not the way, but how many rules do you have? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And they're all about something on the theme of respect.
Yes.
Respect each other, respect the teacher, respect the property.
Yes.
Respecting yourself means that you're on time and prepared. And respecting others means you don't steal their stuff or whatever.
Yes.
All right. But you, when they break a rule, what do we do with them? And do we take responsibility ourselves, or do we offload it to somebody else? In other words, we send them to the office. Do you remember when you were a kid? Maybe you were, my dad and mom were like this. My mom was, wait till your dad gets home. Okay, well, when my dad gets home, I'll straighten up. But in the meantime, I want to mess around, right? Because mom just told me that dad's the disciplinary one and you're not. Wait till dad gets home. Okay. And then when dad gets home, I have 25, 30 minutes of pain or whatever it was. We back in the day with spankings, My dad had a fraternity pal. He wasn't ashamed to use it. I could take that, but in the meantime, I could goof off because when we send kids to the office, you're abdicating your authority. We can't say that admin's not backing us up, and that's why my kids feel where we are, or it's the curriculum, or it's the fact that I have 16 SPED kids instead of 7 this year, or I have too many EL kids, or here's the truth. Here's what I want you to take home, and you may not like hearing. The standards in your classroom are whatever you let the kids get away with. Standards in your classroom are whatever you let the kids get away with. We know that if we deployed and I took your kids and put them in another classroom, they may misbehave more or they may behave more. But the only thing that really changed was the teacher. And we can see that when we go to this junior high level and we see their kids are misbehaving in science, but they're behaving in math and with the same group of kids. It really is you. And Jenny will tell you that when she was growing up, she knew there was a set of rules at her own house and a different set of rules at Grandma's house. And at Grandma's house, you never blah, 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 because Grandma would, right? And you never touched because, but you knew that. That was the expectations. And you met those expectations. In the same way, kids, even if they weren't trained by the teacher previous to you, will quickly learn what your expectations are. So your challenge is to have high behavioral expectations and high academic expectations. And then means business. And we're going to teach you all how to do that. and 6 easy sessions. We got the silver bullets, we got the magic cure. I'm just kidding. It's gonna take some work. I'm setting Jenny up and you here.
I know, I feel like I'm watching a late night commercial. 6 easy sessions.
It's not easy. Classroom management, and we understand that this is a system with 4 different modules that you're gonna go through. And when you use all 4 at the same time, about 90 to 95% of your problems will drop off. With that, I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna lock the door, and I'll be next door for a little bit, and then I'm gonna take off.
Oh, is the camera going?
It is going,
Great,
and all you have to do is shut this door and shut the gate.
all right,
They'll be locked.
I got it.
So I'm gonna have to, we'll leave the door open.
A
Yes.
quick question.
Yes.
I know you said there was a parking lot in the back, but I didn't know how to access it, so I did park in the front. Should I move my car?
You'll be fine.
Okay.
But yeah,
Next
there's
time I'll
parking in the
park
back.
Yeah.
And somebody's got a pretty root beer
That's
Jeep.
mine.
Ooh.
Did you see the hoopty out there?
Is that yours?
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I got stuck with a hoopty. What's that nasty van out there?
All right, have fun.
Embarrassing. Okay, we'll get going. Now that Chatty Cathy left. He didn't hear me.
Oh, Jenny,
Yes, sir.
just close the lid when you're done on the computer.
Okay, thank you. So just because I didn't say anything, I'm Jenny Taylor. I was a teacher for 20 years at Central Unified, and the beginning, I just thought for sure I was going to teach and then coach and then go to college and coach. And about 5 years in, I was diagnosed with lupus. And my doctor basically said, yeah, you're not coaching anymore, your coaching career's done. And I was like, but that's all I've ever known. And I was out for about half a year and then came back and it was like slow. But once I got on my feet again, I was like, okay. I mean, not that just teaching, but I was used to doing a million different things. And I'm like, now my doctors told me I couldn't. And I had heard about this AVID program. I went to a couple conferences when I was still coaching, and I was like, okay, this AVID program would be awesome for our school. Central Unified fits, as a whole, fits the demographics for AVID. So we didn't have it, and we brought a counselor and I brought it to Central, and it just blew up. We started with 60 kids that we basically said, hey, do you like field trips? Awesome. You want to go to college? Awesome, you're in. When that's not really the way you screen for AVID, but we were trying to get it started. That first group of kids, I got them as sophomores, and I remember looking around the room and thinking, there's no way these kids will become a family, which is what AVID preaches, and there's no way. And those kids, it was amazing. Not only did they become a family, and they all went to one girl's dad's funeral, and they were all arm in arm. And I was just a wreck, not because of the death, because these kids had come together, you know. And 100% of them got accepted to four-year college. And we didn't even screen them the way you were supposed to screen them, right? Well, the program blew up, and we ended up, at one point, 600 kids. Now there's multiple sites, multiple programs. Her son's a graduate of my program. And, working with the kids and all of those things, I think I learned so much through the AVID program because they provide so much training that it was amazing. And it definitely transformed my teaching. But I never had any training in classroom management. They don't offer that. I think I did a decent job of it, but then I went to this Time to Teach conference and I was like, holy cow. If I had known some of this stuff while I was teaching, it would have made my life so much easier. Because I was definitely the person that repeated myself until I had a headache, because I didn't want the kids to get in trouble. And one of the things that Time to Teach says is, you don't repeat. You say it, you mean it, and you move on. And I really liked the program because they still maintain the kids' integrity. At no point was the kids' integrity sacrificed. And so we'll get through that. Today's kind of the boring topic. It's very important, but it's very boring to me. And I'll try to be as excited as I can about it. But can you hand that to her for me? Thanks. Ugh. On this card, real quick, I want you guys to write down something that no one would think Something that you've experienced or done or are part of that nobody would expect. Does that make sense? Like something about you that nobody would expect. Is that totally in your eyes? You want me to go further?
No, I'm good.
Anything that,
Talking about the past or
anything, like something that if I looked at you, I would never think. And then don't let anybody see it, and you can pass it over to me. To get my lazy butt up. Thanks. I don't really like those stupid mixers and stuff, but I thought this way we could at least, I'll be able to tag your thing to your name. Hopefully. Huh? That's the goal. Doesn't mean it'll happen. I'm not guaranteeing anything. Yeah.
I didn't want to call.
Thank you, ma'am. Been arrested, been thrown out of a bar.
Mine's too boring, I need to change it. I just thought of something more exciting. I just thought of something more exciting.
I think I like this format way better than our big classes. We the first time we did this, we had 50 people in here. And I was like, okay, no.
You have to manage them.
Yeah,
Manage
it's like
things.
herding cats, you know? And then this session, we're down to 25, and I'm like, that's what I like. I like this better, actually. Pressure. Okay, while you're thinking, I'll just read one out, and we can try to figure out who's who. I have acted on stage.
Sean.
Do I say anything?
Is it you?
No, it's not.
It's not you?
No.
Oh. Who is it?
Me.
Yeah? What did you do?
I met my husband there.
Really?
My husband is a director for the Playhouse of Merced,
Oh, right on.
and we used to act together a lot.
How fun. What are some plays you've done?
I've done I Remember Mama, I've done MAME, I've done Oklahoma.
Oh,
lots,
how fun.
Lots of things.
How
So,
fun. That's awesome. I don't have the guts to do that. but- Colorblind. I'm colorblind.
Sean.
Yeah, that is me.
That's you?
It's mostly
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That explains their, well, not in your case, you're very stylish, but does that explain why some guys can't match their clothes?
Yes, I believe so.
He has a texture. He's got the good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have 54 animals.
That's 54 animals. Do you have 54 animals?
I plan to help too.
There's me.
Oh, you already included.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was a Division I volleyball player.
You look like a volleyball player.
Who is it?
It was
Yeah? Wow, where?
I played at, well, I went to junior college at COS and then I played at Liberty University. in
Yeah.
Virginia.
I know Liberty. I grew up in Atlanta,
Oh.
and so a lot of the kids that I went to school with went up there to Liberty. And I was a basketball player.
Oh.
Played at Lee College in Tennessee.
Oh, cool.
Christian, very strict Christian school. I lasted a semester. I've lived and studied in Kenya for a semester in college. Okay, that's cool. You?
Yes,
I was right.
That is awesome. Study abroad, or and what made you choose Kenya?
I got really interested in sub-Saharan Africa and I liked the program that they had in Kenya, and so I went, and then came back in the summer, and then that following January, I went. A professor had invited me to go do some research with him. So I got
Oh my
to do that.
gosh,
Yeah.
what a cool experience.
Yeah.
Did karaoke in front of the whole school in a group. We're narrowing it down into.
Yeah.
Did you? What'd you have to sing?
We could have both
We
done that.
sang,
Wait,
Katy Perry,
Katy Perry.
Firecracker.
Oh,
And it was her, it was actually the whole team, and I was the singer. They were the backups.
oh.
And I thought, okay, one of the other girls picked the song, but it was a very short, 30-second song. I said, we can't do that. We need the song. So I said, let's do this one. Okay, you'll do it. You're the singer. I'm like, I'll do it. So I went up there. Oh my
Tights
gosh.
on
We
and
put our
everything.
tutu and our boots
No.
and our tights.
It was fun.
Oh, I'm
And I went
sure.
up there, I was like, I was getting kind of sick to my stomach. I went up there.
I think Caesar's senior year, I was asked to sing at the rally, and I had to sing, not seriously singing, but Party in the USA.
Oh.
Killed it in a bad way.
Okay.
Okay, I had my first child at a very young age. Was it Caesar?
No, he was the last one.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was the last one.
How many kids do you have?
4.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How young is young, can we ask?
How young is young? 14. I
Oh,
was 15
you
when
started
I
being a mom early.
I did.
You had a lot of
I did
practice.
everything backwards.
Hey, whatever. It works. That's awesome. So I told you I was a teacher. I told you I was a basketball coach and a softball coach, and then started doing this. And at 20 years in, I had missed a lot of school. And with Avid, you're kind of like a mom. And I was out most of the school year on and off for different infections and stuff like that. And so my district approached me and said, hey, you've given us 20 years, start taking care of yourself. And I was like, all right, I guess so. I didn't want to do it. I thought you'd pull me out at 80. I never wanted to leave the classroom. But it come to the point where it was either that or I wasn't going to be alive, and so we chose that. And then I got into this. And I thought, heck, if I can't be in a classroom, then let me work with teachers and hopefully help things out. Steve and I were paired together, and we're very different. He's very, very serious. I'm at the
Now
close
it
it.
is in my eyes. It moved, and now it is in my, and now it is in my eye.
The first time we were in a meeting together and I slipped a shit or something, he about freaked. And I laughed. So then I set out every day to say something that embarrassed him, or he was always shocked. So it's fun, and it's on camera. So reclaim your classroom is what I call it. I think that no matter how long we've been teaching, I think it's always good for us to check in and get get ideas from people, pick each other's brains, and learn different things. What I want to do with this is kind of introduce the stuff, talk about it for a minute, and then have us discuss it a little bit so you guys can say, like, I know one teacher brought up before, yeah, this is all well and good about moving my desks, except they're bolted to the ground, So there was very little she could do about like classroom arrangement and stuff like that. So with that in mind, obviously, ideally, you'll be able to do some things. Some of the stuff you probably already do, and it's just a matter of sharing it, reminding, and then you go in, maybe pick something out of it that you haven't heard or done. So I love this cartoon, and I try to use it anytime I can. Can you help me, Mrs. Martin? This wasn't covered in any of my education courses. And that is so true. The other thing that shocked me was I was a history major and ended up teaching English. And this was before NCLB, and so they could get away with it. And I thought for sure that everybody that was an English major was taught how to teach writing. Like I thought that was part of it. And so I was sitting in a conference 15 years, 20 years in, and somebody said, well, even as English majors, we never were taught how to teach writing. And I was like, wait a minute, wait. So all those years I've been teaching thinking I was pulling the wool over somebody's eyes, praying that nobody would walk into my room and go, you're doing it all wrong. And he goes, yeah, none of us have been taught. And I was shocked, truly shocked. So that said, we're all basically doing our best with what we know and with our personalities. So we already talked about that. I know that's kind of a creepy picture, but it's fine. He's a creeper. This is the class code. So when you get onto Google Classroom, there is the code. And the way it'll work is when you turn stuff in, whenever you turn it in, there is no set due date except for the end of the program. So as long as I get them by the end, you're good. You don't have to do them every week or I'm not.
And if we're not doing the credit, we don't need.
You may want to, I mean, if you're in the classroom, you may want to do it just, some of the stuff might help you out. Everybody get it? If you need to reach me, same information that's up on the board, I believe, yes. And we did the card. So Marzano, we've all heard about our Marzano. Effective teaching and learning cannot take place in a poorly managed classroom. If students are disorderly and disrespectful and no parent rules and procedures guide behavior, chaos becomes the norm. In these situations, both teachers and students suffer. You all know those teachers. We had a teacher at Central. Honest to goodness, if you walk by his classroom, you would be hit with a paper wad or something because he was asleep and his kids were going ballistic. Yeah. Obviously, no learning occurs in that. Even with whether the good students or the bad students, nobody's going to survive. There was a teacher here in Madera that I was helping out a few years ago, or I was asked to help out, and literally kids were crawling up there. It was amazing how poorly managed it was. And it was everybody else's fault. It wasn't her fault, it wasn't anything she did, and I'm like, unbelievable. It was unbelievable to me that it had gotten that far. So focus on prevention. That's the key, and that's what this whole program tries to preach. 1 ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. This one's huge, and this is one I wish I would have used. Calm is powerful. They use the whole description of going up the staircase. And as you get angrier and angrier or responding or taking the bait of them throwing things at you, you go up until it escalates to an ugly place. So staying calm is powerful. Eliminate potential problems before they happen. You know, I think a lot of people kind of play that game of sitting back and waiting till it happens. And that's, you know, kind of like this kid's gonna blow up, and when he does, or when she does, I'm gonna get him. And think it out. Classroom organization is a huge factor in classroom control. And I never really thought,
Oh, yeah, big time.
I knew like seating arrangements and pairing the right kids with the right, and making sure that I had, I could move freely and things like that. Some of the stuff they bring up in this was kind of a wow moment for me. Soothing colors, I always tried to paint my classrooms, soothing colors, and I tried to play music, except I was so scattered that I never could remember to turn my music on. But, the music, the smells, those kind of things. So with classroom design, clutter-free, yeah, I didn't do that very well. Clutter-free is better for your students because the clutter part obviously stresses them out. My room was a clutter mess, and it became a joke, and I still have kids that will contact me and say, "Miss Taylor, do you need me to come clean your desk?" Because they all knew what kind of desk I had. From what I understand, you guys aren't allowed to burn candles or anything like that, so the scent thing, and then the headaches, I know it can set some kids off for headaches and things like that. Back when I was teaching, we could still do that, but the other thing is the soothing colors. My understanding is you can't paint, but I know a lot of people put the paper up. So just keep in mind what the different colors, the effect they can have on kids. And one of the things I did in my class, and it was such a cool thing until I realized how distracting it was, is my kids, because I had them for 4 years. So as freshmen, I'd tell them, you can pick a tile, and your senior year, you will get to paint it however you want. And my whole wall, my whole ceiling was covered, and I thought, what a cool thing. And it was in the sense that they lived for that, they set goals for that, whatever. But I never thought about a kid who was ADD or it was way overstimuli. And you know, the busier the better for me, but I didn't think about how that might affect the kids. So one of the things that, this is where we've merged it. Time to teach says 2 seats away. So technically you three would be too far away from me. As a teacher, I want to be able to be only 2 seats away. Meaning that I'm that close. Like this is 2 seats. I want to be able to look her in the eye and almost be ready, be able to touch her if I need to. So the thinking is, if I'm this far away, I'm distant from you and I lose my connection. So the idea is to set your room up so that you are 2 seats away. And you'll understand, I'll explain that more further. But zone of proximity, that is, I've been hearing helicopters all friggin' day, and I live where there's no helicopters. They talk about the red, green, yellow zones. Green means the kids are free to just chat, do whatever. So like if I'm working with this table and I have my back turned, that table over there is green. They're gonna go crazy. If I am, like this group would be yellowish. So they're kind of like, is she watching me? Is she not? If I turn my back, they're done, right? They're gonna go do whatever they want. Meanwhile, this group isn't gonna talk because I'm sitting right here, hopefully. So you've got your zones of proximity. That's what those are. And then interior loop. Ideally, what they're saying is, however you're set up. So like this isn't real easy for me to shoot through here, right? But if I had it set up better, I could be able to walk while I'm talking, and you guys, a lot of you have your tablets and you could control it from the back of the room. I could be here, I could be lecturing from here. I could be lecturing from back there, and those kids are gonna be like, why is she standing by me, right? Why is she doing this? Why is she behind me? Why is she standing right next to me? Right? Let them think. You know, is she mad at me? Is she, but they're gonna self-correct, most of them. You're gonna have a few kids that won't. So the interior loop is the loop that you can make around your classroom, and our goal is 2 seats away. And what, he was gonna print some stuff out, I think, a lot of death by paper, so, but you know, a lot of you set up this way. If I'm walking through my thing, I'm only 2 seats away. Okay? If I'm here, however, that kind of negates that. So I need to make sure I'm constantly moving. Whatever my path is, whatever. You know, you just want to make sure you're constantly moving. One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of the classrooms I visit is that we're stagnant. I was the queen of stagnant. Need to move around, pop up. Don't be predictable. Don't do the same path all the time, because you know they will start planning stuff. It's all thinking about, like, is not your worst kid, but the kid that you have to deal with the most, is he at the back table because it's easier for us to get rid of him? Or do you have him right in front where you can stay on top of him? If you're roaming, it probably isn't that big of a deal. However, we all start the class right here. So I would have those kids as close to me as possible and make sure that they're not more than 2 seats away from you. Furniture. What type of desk do you have? What's your instructional style? Be flexible. So some of us have tables. Some of us have round tables. Some of us have mismatched desks. I know that I've been in classrooms where there's like 3 different kinds of desks in there. And so they don't sit up next to each other, and the kids of course perseverate over the fact that they don't meet and all those different things. So think about your desks. It'd be nice if they all look like that, but they don't. And what is your instructional style? Like I was very kickback. And I expected them, if I put an assignment on the board and I told you it was due the 15th, don't ask me. I'm not going to say, hey, that paper's due. Turn it in. You know it's due. Which I think I did a disservice. But in my thinking was, you're not in elementary school anymore. I don't have to hunt you down for your assignments. Just turn them in because you're supposed to turn them in. And in an ideal world, that would be the case, but it's not. That said, know your instructional style. Some people, I like collaborative learning. Some people can't stand it. They can't stand a noisy classroom. They want it dead silent. You need to know that, identify that about yourself, and that has a huge role in how you set up your classroom. Be flexible with everything. You know, schedules change constantly. You know that you may have to be flexible in how you handle the organization of your classroom based on, I mean, my second period was always good, but that class right after lunch, not so much. And so I wanted to have that set up 2 by 2 by 2 because it was easier for me to manage. But if I had, my other groups, I could have them in, my other classes, I could have them in groups and it'd be awesome. So know what you're in for and know your class's special needs. Who are your kids that are triggered by certain things? I mean, you guys are all the senior teachers, you all know this part. And know when to change. I think, like with me, I'd always say, okay, if you guys don't, if you're not good about this, I'm gonna have to give you a different seating chart. And then I would never come back with a new seating chart. So know when you need to change. I know that Avid, they had some great ideas. Like they would cut up a deck of cards, cut them in half, and then as kids walked in, they'd hand it to them and then say, go find the other queens or kings or whatever. And they would, it stirred them up, but it wasn't like you picked on them. Unfortunately, a lot of the kids still end up together. I'm like, how does that happen? I intentionally tried to split you up. So this is the desk arrangement. We talked about 2 seats away, interior loop. Don't plant yourself front or at your desk. Roam. I'm guessing, because of all the experience in this room, that probably the only thing that's going to resonate right now is the roaming.
Yeah.
Because we get so used to planting, and when you've been teaching this long, old habits die hard. The other thing is you guys have the advantage of the great technology, and use it. Use it so that you can teach from elsewhere and keep those kids on their toes.
Because we don't have that capability, I'm hooked in at my desk, so I usually, when I'm reading or doing, I roam the room, but I can't do anything that has to be hooked into the wall and into a spot and anything, so I'm kind of stuck if I'm doing something where maybe a ladybug or,
Yeah.
certain things.
Well, in that case, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I try to do something and then walk, but it's really, I know it does hinder things, I think. It'd be nice to be able to do what you're saying, walk around.
Ideally.
Ideally. That would hopefully come in soon.
Well, and if you have that, use it. But if you don't, you got to do the best you can. And as long as you're roaming when they're, I think too, when you're lecturing, they're a little less likely to be too disruptive unless they're the FAR group or the group that you know is squirrely. The problems come around when they're doing individual work, and if you're roaming then. We'll talk about too, what do you do if you're over here and a kid over here decides to be a jacknut, and then you go to work with him, and of course somebody over here decides to be a jacknut, and you become a ping pong ball. And so we'll talk about some ways to deal with that. But this can eliminate a great deal of your problems if you know, if you're smart about how you do this, but not always. Power position. They say what we just talked about. Don't stand at your desk. Do not put your desk at the front of the room. It's not supposed to be the focus. Huh?
We don't have desks. Kindergarten does not have desks.
Oh yeah, true. You guys have
We have
rugs.
we have a teacher table.
If you have a desk, it's not the place to park. It should be out of the way. And up here, one of the things that, this is a good example of how boring it can get, but they say that if you want to be the focus, then you make sure that when you are, like perhaps talking in the front of the classroom, that there's not a bunch of distractors behind you. And see, I thought it was cool to have tons of distractors, not realizing that that defeats my whole role of authority. And I never thought about that. So it's not that it needs to be completely barren like this room is, but they say that you limit what's here because the kids are focused that way. I kind of agree with that. I don't know.
sometimes you don't have a choice. I mean, you only have so many walls.
Yeah,
And,
true.
and you have so many things you have to put up, and so you don't have a choice. You gotta put them somewhere.
Well, and like in here, they don't have much, but he also doesn't have a class. I mean, like you guys have all the Williams Law or Williams Act and all that stuff that you have to put up.
Standards and all the posters and all the cupboards and all the, you know, you
Yeah,
have
you guys
so
have a
many
lot of stuff.
walls.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, I think an example though is, I went into a classroom somewhere in Madera and, there was so much stuff, like packed. And even I walked in and went, like just staring at everything. Well, that again, like my ceiling, a horrible distractor to kids who are trying, especially for that kid that is a little bit ADD, a little ADHD, who's struggling with processing or anything like that. Anything that can be a distraction will. What we just talked about, using your technology to your advantage. They're saying that up here should only be informational posters that help, that kind of stuff. I was in a classroom in Chowchilla and I mean there were posters everywhere, but they were posters that she had done that were instructional, like how to write a paragraph, how to write an essay. And see, I thought that was awesome. So I think within reason and understanding what is distracting and what is helping their education is way more important than striving to not have anything up there.
What about student work?
See, that's tough because when you talk about student work, I know as a kid, I would sit there and analyze whose was whose. And then I would be like, they're not very good at it.
you need to have I do anyways, I have a spot in my classroom for student work, but the other walls are not all student work. Because like you said, it's like, just gets too much.
Well, and I think, I'm thinking from the laid back side, another word for my laziness, is I didn't change it frequently enough. But if I had one area, I might change it more frequently. I don't know. I understand what you're saying too. I think it's a matter too of how it's presented. You can present things that are very linear, and you can present things that are very cluttered, and in which case it would be distracting for them also. I don't know. You'd have to.
That's a hard one.
It is, and I think because you guys are senior teachers, I don't mean senior like citizens, I mean tenure. You know, we do all this. We do this, and we do all this, but there's got to be something where you could tighten up a little bit or clean it up. So, real quick, take about 5 minutes, and just sketch out your current classroom design real quick. Your current, and if you're a elementary or
I'm a terrible host.
it's only for you, so don't worry.
Just our classroom setup?
Yeah, your classroom setup. And note where the door is, the board, the cubbies, whatever the heck they all have. if you look at it now too, the stuff we talked about, like where's your desk? If you don't have a desk, think about that question. Where's your desk? Is it out of the way? Is it where, removed? Is it the focus of attention? And then look and see, do you have it set up where you're less than 2 seats away, or 2 seats away, or you have an interior loop? I know some people can't move their desks, but the key thing is to be able to have an interior loop where you can reach all the kids at some point, like on your loop.
I don't usually use my desk to sit at.
Huh?
I don't use my desk to sit at. I never sit at my desk. It's like to hold my computer.
Yeah, no.
And
So-
I don't, like, on the side, like the front deck is here, and I have to plug into this, and it's just here, but I don't sit at my desk.
Got it.
It's kind of like, I have
It's
my
because
own.
of electronics, basically. Got it. And the biggest important thing I would say, because we all, like science teachers have the big lab tables, and elementary, they don't, like kindergarten, we don't have desks, but the upper grades, you guys have your desks. I mean, we all have different situations, different types of formats. So that said, the main thing then is to make sure you can utilize the interior loop, and you don't have to trip over backpacks and all that. I used to teach next to this lady, and she was kind of in that. One day I hear this, wah, screaming. And I go over there, and one of the kids, it's not funny, but it is, she was fine. But they had a skateboard. And she couldn't fit between their desks and stepped on the skateboard and went,
No,
outside.
I had a teacher that broke her legs because the kid's backpack was in the way. She
Oh.
stepped on it, and she fell, and she broke her leg.
I used to trip over them all the time because I'm clumsy anyway, but then you cram, like some of you have so many students in your classroom that you can't even move. So that said, you've got to figure out a way, whether they put their backpacks against the back wall or whatever they do, so that you can maintain that. Because if we can't make that interior loop, we sacrifice not only learning, but we sacrifice safety. And you need to be able to get to those students quickly if something were to happen. I used to barricade myself because I ran a lot of stuff too, so there was times I had to be at my desk, but not when I had students. So I'd be at lunch, I'd be in my desk area, and my desk area was basically a long table and a computer table, so I was kind of like in there. And one day I had a student come in, and he said, and I always left my door open because you never want to be left alone with a kid, blah, blah. He shuts my door and starts walking towards me. And I'm all, I need you to open the door. And he's like, no, Miss Taylor, I want to talk to you. So he starts working his way over to my desk, and I didn't think fast enough to get out from there. And he came around my desk to the open area and basically started asking some really strange questions. And thankfully somebody walked in. Yeah, freaked me out. Talked about call to the office, intervention. And the crazy part of him was, I was an English teacher, so I read some of his writings, and they were a little dark. Nothing that I would, scream to the counselor, but a little dark. But his mother is the lady that drove right into the city hall that one time. Right after we built City Hall, she drove right in and right through the glass in the front and all that, yeah. And so kind of crazy kind of ran in the family, and so I was legitimately scared. So where you have your desk, make sure you've got ways around it. I never even thought that would ever happen. And I'm not sure that he was even threatening me, but I did not feel comfortable, So, the reason I had you sketch it out is to think about some of the stuff we've talked about and where you possibly can make a tweak or two. We can do break, or we can power through and be done. What do you guys, anybody can get up and go to the bathroom anytime you need to go.
Go for it, power.
Go for it? All right. But that's a really cute picture, isn't it? Okay, so human nature. We have this, Steve likes to explain this, the subcortex and all this brain stuff. Basically, it's a fight or flight reflex. So when a child or a student or a colleague says something to us, that is somewhat, somebody does something, somebody says something, we immediately go to fight or flight. That's our instinct, that's what we do. And that said, we want to stay calm to avoid this, because it's in our nature. It's how, let's get back to, what am I trying to think of?
Survival of the fittest.
The what?
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, there you go. Darwin and all that. It's how we survived. It's how animals survive. And when you are immediately upset, or something is said to upset you, if you do not stay calm, we immediately go to I think it's our frontal cortex, where we respond instinctively, and that's not always appropriate, right? Our fight or flight kicks in. We want to either fight and get mad, or we run. You can't run at your class. So you have to somehow manage that. And that said, when you guys go home, this is where I was at when my career stopped. I go home with a headache. I went home with a headache because I thought I was just tired. I didn't realize it was because all day long I'm holding stuff in. I feel it in my shoulders, and I get to where I'm just tight. And when that tight happens, then you get the headache. So for your survival, you probably get massages, you probably sure, whatever. And drink a lot, whatever. But whatever it is, it keeps us calm, right? Let's prevent that, ideally, okay? Every day is not going to be perfect, I get that. But if you can identify, this kid's trying to tick me off, even if it's a little bit of stuff throughout the day, instead of letting it build up, take a deep breath, stay calm, okay, and deal with it that way, instead of letting it eat away at you until you're so angry and your neck's so tight and everything. Basically, Steve teaches this, and it works, as crazy as it is the relaxation technique. And it's where you push your tongue in the top of the roof of your mouth. And you push it hard, you hold it for a little bit, and then you let it go, and your jaw drops, and you relax. They also teach it for like baseball players when they're waiting for a fly ball. They'll tell them, drop your jaw, like just kind of, and it relaxes everything, and then that way they don't freak. I don't know if that makes them any better of a baseball player, but it's a good idea. So with you, when you realize that you're starting to get stressed out, it really works. I did it at home when I was really mad at one of the animals. I just kind of, and you can feel your jaw drop when you do that, and it relaxes everything. The other thing is tense everything up as tight as you can. Let it go and take a deep breath. And that'll relax you too. The key to that is the kids don't even have to see you doing it. They're not going to know that they've upset you, that they've stressed you out, whatever. And you can do it real quick. Take time, take a deep breath, and then deal with the situation. And we'll be talking more about that. But to identify that is huge. And I never really, you just power through. Like, especially when you have a lot of stuff to do, you just power through. You don't always take time for yourself. And I would imagine that most of you are probably, my room never closed. So people said, oh, you're supposed to have a 45-minute duty-free lunch. Yeah, that never happened. Never. My door was open, kids wanted to come in, and they'd come in and hang out. But of course, they don't just come in and hang out with their friends. They have to bug you, so you don't really have a duty-free lunch. Or the kid that just needs help, or the kid that's needy, and you're that one connection for them. You're not going to tell that kid no. Like, we got into this because we love kids. And, that you're not going to tell a kid no. So, that said, realize that the stress that you go under every day is what does cause those headaches, those backaches, all that. And we knew this going in. I'm sure people have told us, oh, you guys are teachers, well, how do you do it? And so we know it's emotionally, right? We know it's emotionally trying. We know it's hard on us. I mean, I used to love when I taught in Sanger. Is that where she went, or did she go to Marissa? Where did she go to school?
Marissa?
Yeah. Your niece.
Oh, Ashley.
Ashley.
Sacramento.
But where did she go to high school? Central?
East. Oh, wait, I think she went to West. She was at West, Central West.
Ashley Maldonado. I need to see a face, but yeah. And, okay, where was I going with that?
Take care of ourselves.
Yeah, take
Huh?
care of
Take care of
ourselves.
ourselves and.
Just fast and.
I don't know. Oh, my first job was in Sanger.
We're in Sanger.
Huh?
We're in Sanger.
I started at WAMS before it was WAMS,
Yeah.
and I did my student teaching at the high school. But then I got hired on it at Washington, when it was just Washington.
I just
Before,
came over from Sanger, that's
oh,
why.
you did? Oh, we'll have to swap. I know a lot of people over there.
Nancy Penny.
Yeah,
You guys know Nancy Penny?
I used to love the drive from there to Clovis where I lived because it was time to decompress. And it was my first year of teaching and I didn't realize how important that was. And you know, I was still single and it was, and I didn't really have to go home and deal with kids or making dinner or anything. Like, life was easy. And I enjoyed it then. Like, I had no idea how much I would need it later. And it was important for me. It was important for me to blast that music and just kind of cruise and calm down. And I know you guys all know the feeling because when you go home to a family, you don't feel like
There's no downtime.
none,
Zero.
none. And you know, you go home and your kid needs you, and they're needy, and they need you to help them or whatever. And then you've had kids tugging on you all day long. It's hard. It's hard. Now that I have a teenager, I understand it better. But I didn't have any kids of my own, but my partner and I are raising her two nieces. One of them's now married and doing well, but we have a junior in high school right now. But I have a whole new appreciation for that. Even though I never had her as a child, a baby, I have a whole new appreciation for them needing you and needing your attention because I coached little softball travel, which takes up tons of time, right? And when I had to resign because of my medical stuff, my kid says, "Oh, good, you can spend more time with me." And I was like I never even, you know, yeah. Anyway, it was a good lesson for me. But it is, I can't imagine those of you that have had full families and have been going home, it's got to be draining. And I think if you're able to deal with this a little bit more and kind of recognize it, it might make you a little less stressed when you go home. I know it's not going to be perfect, but we can hope, right? Right now it's that and my animals that drive me
And I'm
crazy.
just now learning that I should have given as much time to my personal children as I gave to my school children.
Yes,
It's true.
I wonder about
It's
that.
absolutely true. Sometimes I gave more time to my kids at school than I gave to my own personal children. And it's
Well,
sad,
don't beat
because now
yourself
they're-
up.
because now they're gone.
But you thought you were doing the right thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
at that time.
Exactly.
And that's hard. Like,
It's a hard call.
my best friend was the head counselor at Central, and she was married to her husband, and I had my partner of 12 years, and we would talk about, oh, when we have kids, this is gonna have to change, because we did everything for our kids, and then being an avid teacher, you're their pseudo mom, and so like we did, everything, and I thought, God, when we have kids, it's gonna turn this upside down. Like, how is that gonna work? And inevitably, they ended up having 2 children, and it changed drastically. Just, it has to. And then even still, you know.
They
even
thought they all turned out okay, but it was just, you know, now that they're gone and grown, it's like, I sit there sometimes, because now I'm empty nest syndrome, you know?
Yeah.
And I sit there and I'm like, man, I sure wasted some time with them, a lot of time with them.
You know, the part I think that probably is the hardest is your kids would have, in the most cases, your kids would have appreciated it more than some of our students do. You know what I mean?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, I think some of them do, and if we're lucky enough to hear that, that's a blessing in itself, but sometimes you wonder, like, your kid probably would have appreciated it. I don't know, though. I mean, maybe not. I don't know, because, like, my teenager right now, who knows?
Who knows?
Sometimes I think she'd rather I wouldn't talk to her, and other times she
Well,
wants
I
to talk.
think now that they're grown, they would have seen the benefits of it, but at the time, they wouldn't have.
Yeah, no,
At the time,
yeah, no.
at the time they don't care.
And at the
Kids
time,
are
you're
doing their
probably
thing, they
so
don't-
tired, you don't wanna
even
deal
think
with
of-
them.
I mean, they don't think about those things, but now that they're grown, I bet you they do.
But I'm sure that, sorry.
I was thinking at teachers, because I do the I do the sunshine at school, and I was thinking this last week, but when something happened from my students, this is totally changing about doing my own, but sometimes you gotta laugh a little bit, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And I thought there's no forum for us to have like at our table something where it was like nothing, not a gossip thing, but just joys. You
Yeah.
know, like to have, I was thinking Washington Share or something like that, where we could just have an email when we want to say this is something positive that happened or this is whatever, or something funny. Because, and what brought it up is I had a student who doesn't speak English and the mom gave me a mug for, and the office called me and said, hey, you need to get it before the end of the day. And I go, okay, there's a kind of a weird sound, like I could hear something in their voice, like what was going on. And one of the moms gave me a mug that said sexy and I know it. Because they cannot speak, you know, they don't speak English. And they were giving this to me. And I laughed so hard all the way home. I sang sexy and I'm so sexy all the way home and laughed about this. But then I didn't really have anyone to totally share it to the next day. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It would have been funny to say, you know, these like funny moments that happen in teaching.
Oh, yeah.
They're
So
everywhere,
anyways,
you guys.
I mean, but anyway,
Yeah,
I was
it's
just
already
thinking
happened.
after there's
We could write
that would be something.
We could write about it.
I'm gonna try to bring that up at the school.
That's
Because
a great
just
idea.
That is,
But
I
a
think
little-
teachers need that, we
Yeah.
don't have that.
outlet, yeah, because we don't have a chance to see, like, I don't see
Things
my
that
students,
go
we
on.
get done, we're done with our kids, we're in the car on the way home, we're doing it, but just to be able on your leisure, when your husband's watching TV or something, to send out a little something that happened special or funny, just with your community, I'm not saying school-wide, but your community that you're part of, you know.
I think that's awesome.
So, anyway.
Because you know, stuff happens I think stuff happens every day that at least, I used to think every day something happens where I go, this is why I teach. Like, it wasn't always, you know, it could be the worst day and then somebody come in and give me a Coke. And you'd be like, oh, that's why I teach, you know? And you'd melt, but who do you share that with?
Yeah, you know, I mean, just a little, something like a kid just brought me a card from 5th grade, he wrote me a Valentine's card and brought it to me. You know, so little things like that happen, and it might not be everything you put up there, but something that you feel, I don't know, I just
Are you
thought-
guys all elementary?
Yes.
Yeah. I did my student teaching in Sanger, and I was long-term subbing at this point, PE, which I swore I'd never do, but I was doing it. And in Sanger they had the old gym, and it was not designed to be safe or anything. And we had a fire drill, and I'm like, ladies, you need to get out, ladies, you need to get out, and I'm, you know, focused, and there were these 4 girls at their locker, and they were looking down, and I said, ladies, I need you to go, and the girl said something and looked down, and they weren't English speakers, and I didn't hear what she said, and so I said, get out. So when she said something, I didn't know what she said, and I said, what did you say to me? And she looked down, I'm like, what did you say? Nothing. And she shook her head, well, I'm like, okay, you gotta get out. So I went out there and I said, hey, now, what did you say? Like, I was sure she had said, F you, Miss Taylor. And she said, looks up, tears. Miss Taylor would never say that to you. She said, all I said was, I don't know, something. And I was like, oh my God, honey, I am so sorry. Let me apologize in front of everybody, because that's where I yelled at you, in front of everybody. And she said, no, it's okay, Miss Taylor. I'm like, no. So I did. Christmas, she walks in, sets a Diet Pepsi on my desk, and said, Miss Taylor, I couldn't afford much, but I wanted to get you something. Lesson learned. Like, what a butthead thing for me to do. But after that, I always listened first. I would always, even if I thought they were wrong, I'd let them tell their story. And then, because I mean, that was such a sad, this poor little girl, I felt like I ruined her forever. And she was so sweet. So, just realizing that there were little things, like, if I could have told somebody how cool that this kid brought me this after I did this, you know, it would have been awesome. But I was a newbie and you just didn't tell anybody anything, you know?
Faking it every day.
Yeah. Especially in PE, I was like, I didn't want to do this, heard that. And then, of course, all the male PE coaches was dance unit. They disappeared and brought all their kids to the gym. 100 people, I'm teaching line dancing. I don't even know how to line dance, but whatever. They brought a professional guy in and he was quite attractive, and so he taught me how to dance, and I taught it to all those kids. But yeah, talk about being abused as the new kid. Rookie. I got eaten up. So we were talking about, somebody said toolbox. I think it was you. You said tools. I think the coolest part of this is tools. Some tools that we'll give you. And ideally, you are going to have your favorites. Your favorite things that you do, things you're most comfortable with. This one's one of my favorite. I think a lot of us do it, but I don't think we do it with any kind of a science behind it. Proximity. So, you know, the kid's talking and you walk over and you're like, a lot of us, though, invade their space. Like this. Ideally, we're supposed to be 45 degrees, 2 to 3 feet away. Because you don't, like, particularly some cultures do not do well with us invading their space. So if you're 45 degrees, and you can either just stand there, and they're going to be like, they may even ask you, what are you doing? Nothing. And you just stand there. Or, if you need to address it, you can say, you know, I need you guys to be quiet. Or no, I don't need to say, you will be quiet. But the proximity, I think, is huge because most of the time, probably, I would say 85% of the time, they're going to self-correct. But here's the issue. I go proximity, I exploit proximity with this kid. Meanwhile, they're doing that, right? Make sure your body language is always very confident, standing tall. Okay. Ideally, Steve will tell you too how you do your arms. When I do this, what am I saying?
Not pleased.
I'm not pleased. Kind of ticked.
Closed off.
Closed off. Absolutely. They also say that you know, obviously our faces say a lot, but you're supposed to. They can stand like this too. But in some ways that can be confrontational also. He says do this. I can't do that. I'm too much of a talker. But ideally your hands are down at your side and you're just standing there. If you need to, you put them behind you, just stand there. Okay, so I'm over here. If I turn my back, I'm, you know, obviously creating an opportunity for someone that's being a punk. So when I'm standing here at 45 degrees, I'm going to open up so I can see the class. That helps. I mean, you know you've got that kid back there who's going to be a butt no matter what. Okay? Or up here, ideally if they're in the front. So you're standing here, but you've still got eye contact. Okay? And you always maintain that. And then you're standing here. All we're talking about is proximity. There's a bunch of other tools that will come about. But that one is powerful. And if you remember, don't invade their space. 45 degrees, 2 to 3 back, and you're just kind of standing. You can do it lecturing, you can do it. In all the classrooms I've been in, I wish more teachers used it. Because it's such a powerful tool, but so many people are afraid to get away from the front, and they don't want to relinquish that comfort.
I use it all the time.
Do what?
I use it all the time.
Well, and I think it's such an easy tool, and it's so powerful. Remaining calm, fight or flight, avoid that.
That one I have to work on.
Yeah, me
It's just
too.
part of my personality.
Well, and I have a horrid temper, so I understand. Like, with my students, I was incredibly patient, incredibly. But I had one kid one time who, I don't know, he was having a bad day, and he was in the back, and never had a problem with this kid before, and he says, "Oh, you think you're a badass, do you?" to me. And I was like, "What? What did you say?" And it escalated, and he stood up and said something about, "I'm going to get you fired." And I said, "Well, you can get me fired, just go ahead and leave." And I sent him away. I mean, I've only written like 4 referrals my entire career, and he was one of them. And then he sat in the office and told everybody he was going to get me fired. Even though I didn't do anything, but he was going to get me fired. And I remember being so upset that I gave in. Like, he beat me because I lost my cool. And that's just not, thankfully it didn't happen frequently, or I would never have any class control, but it was one of those moments where I just knew I'd gotten the best of me.
And it's not anger-wise, it's just that I've always been one to be too loud. Because my personality is just...
Yeah, but that's not bad, is it? You think that's bad?
Well, all my evaluations have been, you need to have more voice control. Because I'm very loud when I teach.
I don't know if that's really,
But I don't know, yeah. But I mean, it never hindered my evaluation or anything,
right.
but every time it was like, you're very loud, try voice control, okay,
I don't have a volume button.
okay.
So the toolbox, couple things we're gonna talk about. We've already talked about the remaining calm, for your sanity as well as the calmness in the classroom. I think for me, I'd have to talk myself down in certain, like, whoa, okay, wait a minute, what's happening here, kind of in my head. But the moving in. So this one is a good one also. And learning to manage with your physical presence, that kind of goes with proximity. It's your body language. I was shocked at the difference. I don't think I realized until now that I go into other classrooms, I've noticed how different body languages translate to the kids.
Oh, yeah.
I went into a class at Desmond, I think it was. I've talked about it before where the kids were crawling up there and all that. And I walked in and I'm sitting in the back.
Desmond?
Huh? Yeah. I was sitting in the back and the kids were obnoxious but not climbing up the walls yet. And the teacher walked out, and as she was walking out I said, do you mind if I say something to your kids? She said, no, not at all. And I didn't do anything. I got up, I walked up to the front, and I stood, and the kids all turned around and faced me and were quiet. And I was like, you guys realize that, you know, I'm kind of giving this speech. And I thought about it, and I thought, I walked up with years of experience, and I was like, controlling the room. This teacher was having trouble controlling the room, and therefore the kids controlled it and ran her. And they ran her ragged. And it was just a difference of the confidence. How do you approach the kids? How do you, and I'm telling you this, you guys know this, this stuff you can also help your colleagues when you have a new teacher that goes, I don't get it, why did they run all over me? Well, part of it is, how are you approaching the classroom? How are you approaching them? You know, you're not their friends. So walk in and own it. And own it and be confident and don't do this and, you know, make sure you're open, but make sure you're authoritative. Shoulders back, eye contact always. I think having a loud voice is at least.
It's just my personality.
Yeah, I think
it's just the way I am, and I tell them that. I'm sorry. That's just.
But
the way
I think
am.
that also, in a lot of cases, exudes confidence.
Yes.
Because you know the teacher that goes up and is like a meek little mouse. You're like, oh, they're gonna get eaten up. You know, you see it and you know it. You know right away.
I mean, it's a personality thing. I mean, that's her. You know what I mean? If a personality, but they're confident, but then there's, which is, I have a tendency to, talk. But when, you know what I mean? There's times where
Yeah.
the quiet person has confidence,
Yes,
quiet
yes,
confidence,
yes,
and the
sure.
way they handle. So it's personality, and both are effective.
That's right.
I think the underlying same thing is body language. You know, there have been teachers that are super quiet that have amazing control. But you watch their body language is very confident, very confident. This is what we talked about: exploiting proximity, 2 to 3 feet away, 45-degree angle, silent pause, make them wonder why you're standing there. You know, I always knew, like, my clothes didn't match or my hair was sticking up, and I was going to eliminate that.
Kindergartner will tell you.
Yeah, and I would make the comment before they could, because I didn't want them all perseverating about it and talking to each other about it and giggling. I would giggle with them, and that would be the end of it, you know. Didn't always work that way, I'm sure.
If I'm silent,
Huh?
if I'm silent, they know something's wrong.
Yeah, that's true. So, Queen Victoria face. We aren't supposed to show any emotion.
Yeah, right.
I know.
Come on, we're here.
But this is Fred Jones. They call it the Queen Victoria face. What's funny is Steve would say Queen Victoria, and I had to have a picture of, what can't I think of the Queen Elizabeth. I'd have her up there. And Steve would be like, that's not Queen Victoria. Show no emotion, don't react to students' comments, arms at your side. Ideally, this is what Fred Jones teaches. I laugh at everything, and so I always felt like I can't not laugh. I mean, I understand that that's ideally what we strive for, And the reason why is this. A kid says, Miss Taylor, I'll say, okay, we're reading Romeo and Juliet. I need you guys to go to Act 2. I'm going to start getting, and some kid in the back says, Miss Taylor, that is so gay. I hate this play. Instead of me going, well, you know what? The point is, I'm supposed to go, that may be, but we're still going to read it. You know, something along those lines. That was a diffuser I just used. But you never give in. I can understand on the angry part of it, but like, I'm going to laugh. I'm always going to laugh. And within means.
Right.
Like the kid, let's say a kid who is a ham says something that really kind of is funny. Everybody laughs and then you go, okay, moving on, thank you for that, and move on. I think there's a way to control it. Another story. My Avid kids were in the computer lab, back when we had computer labs. And they were all, their backs were to me. Rows and rows of them. And I was trying to plan a trip for Avid, so I was on the phone with transportation. And I had my back turned, and they had me on hold. The person comes back, and they said, who are you holding for? And I said, I'm waiting for Dick. I turn around, every kid is shaking. They're laughing so hard. And I turned around and went, oh my God. And so we all laughed. And then I said, okay, moving on. But I was mortified that I'd even said it. And I knew as soon as it came out, I wasn't even thinking like that. And then I went, and you see all of them shaking. Yeah, I do teach high school. And they're all giggling. And then I'm like, oh my God. And so that's been a running joke in that I was so inappropriate. But I didn't mean to be. I mean, the guy's really, that really was his name. So anyway, it says don't react. I don't know that that's necessarily, I think that we can strive for that, particularly with anger. Or if somebody says something that is off color or whatever, I would strongly suggest no response, except prompt, a prompt disciplinary response. And we'll talk about whether you address that or not. But I think off color, anything that's at the expense of another child, obviously those things need to be jumped on immediately.
I see that as being like a student, I hate you. That's okay. I wish you were dead. That's fine, we'll deal with that, but I still need you to get your work done. And move on. And he
Yes.
stood there and like, he was totally expecting to get sent out of the room.
Which was probably his goal.
Right,
His
his
goal
goal
is
is
to rile, his goal is to rile you up.
Right, and instead it was just, you're not gonna get mad at me? And now he had nothing else to do except do his
Conform.
work.
That's
Right.
That's right.
The what you said about that may be or whatever, those are all called diffusers, and that's one of the things that is big in this is you don't get mad. You kind of put them on their heels when you say something like that, and you're not being rude. You're not calling them out. They initiated, right? And then when you said, well, okay, but we're still going to do this. I respect your opinion, but it doesn't matter here. Yeah. And that would be a time where you stay very, very serious, but very, you're still caring, right? You're still making eye contact, you're showing compassion.
Proximity too, usually.
Do what?
You kind of get close, you're in proximity usually.
Yes. And you were next to him, correct? Yeah. And in that case, you probably, it was probably between you and him, and maybe these kids heard, but it wasn't an all-out class heard it. Or maybe it was, I don't know.
It was, he'd said it loud enough.
Oh, did he?
But then it's okay, we'll move on. And then
Well, and they saw how you
came back
handled it.
to just a one-on-one conversation with him later. And
Yeah.
the next day he came in and gave me a big hug.
So it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I think one of the things that, if a kid acts up, 9 times out of 10, something's going on with them. Has nothing to do with you. It's not personal. And it is something that, it could be, something that their dad got arrested, or, they didn't get any sleep, or they didn't get to eat, or whatever. You never know. It could just be, I think one of the hard things for me was my family looked like the perfect family. We looked like we had it all together, but my dad was abusive. And nobody ever, this is before it was reported frequently, and nobody really realized ever what went on in our house because of the image. And I'm sure I came to school some days just shot. I don't remember. But, you know, when you're getting that at home and then you're supposed to put on a happy face at school, teenagers and little kids aren't really good at that, pretending. So, this is the move-in. So, let's say I'm over here, I'm helping Sean, and somebody over there starts being obnoxious. I stop what I'm doing, I have both palms on the table, and I go, "Excuse me, Sean?" And I slowly stand up, and I slowly turn, and I quietly walk over to that person. And when I get over to that person, I'm like this, proximity. And if they don't self-correct, I lean over, and then I say, "I need you to get number 3 done." And then you wait till they're working, you stand up, and I would still stand there for a minute to make sure they do it, and then you walk away. So they call that the move-in. The move-in is you're walking from one student, you're being respectful, excuse me. You stand up, you do the slow turn, and then you walk over. They did say you can go 1 palm first, and then if they don't conform, you do 2 palms. Okay, and this is actual technique called the move-in. We could practice it, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We might have to do that next time to see, but ideally, it's important for you direct, you don't ask. You don't say, "Would you please do?" No, get rid of that. It's, "I need you to do," or "You will do number 3, and I'll come back and check." Right. And then, one of the things that I think has been probably a good bite to take off of is you have a kid that is, I don't know, the frequent flyer, the frequent questioner, who sucks up all your time, right? And so you're trying to help Susie, who rarely asks for help, but Billy over here, who's the frequent flyer, wants you over there. So one of the things that, and I've seen this year several times, is if you go over to frequent flyer and you say, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you get the next 5 done, and then I'm going to come check you," okay? Now he's got a goal, or she. Now they've got something to focus on, and then they still know that you're going to check back in with them. But it's on your time. He's not running you. And that way you've got a little bit of time to go. Now, when he finishes those 5 and goes, "I'm done," "Okay, I got you. I'll be there in a few minutes. You know, why don't you work on the next 5? But you've got to learn how to manage those kids because they suck you dry. And we all know them, you know. And I think, it's not that I think you guys already know this, I know you do. But sometimes it's a good reminder because we get so wrapped up. And at this point in the school year, you're probably a little bit drowning in some regards. I mean, spring is where we have all the tests. It's where we have all the holidays. It's cut short. It seems like it's compressed, and it seems like it flies by. And so I think we get caught up in that. We kind of lose some of those ideas that we knew. Any questions about that?
Not this, because I've seen this work, but if there's a student who does not do work, period, no matter what you've tried and different techniques, what do you suggest?
Is it a discipline problem or just not doing work?
No, I talked with him all since it started last year sometime, and he just will not write at all. I mean, I've gotten him very little times if I've ever gotten him. I'm finally getting more, but it's really been I don't know, I mean, and he doesn't seem to care. I don't know how to.
And see, that's tough because you're working with the mom. What I would ideally say is work on a relationship with him even more. Give him some privileges that have nothing to do with academics. Basically endear him a little bit to it, and I think you'll get more out of him. That line that Steve used about if the kids believe you care, they'll go through a wall for you. That's my saying. I mean, I believe that. People would ask, what did you guys, all the Avid teachers always had great test scores, and that was a big deal, and still is, I guess. And people said, "What do you do?" And I'm like, we don't do anything different. We teach them to think, and we teach them to critically think, and that makes them good test takers, right? So it wasn't a matter of having to force stuff down their throats. If they knew we believed in them, they did it. And I think with him, you might eventually get that. Maybe have him do something special one day and then maybe another day, and just see if you'll buy him over, like endear him over to you. I think that's huge, huge to do that. Anybody else have any suggestions for that?
I mean, because our relationship is good as far as that goes. I'm just, I'll think about it, because that's good. I think there needs to be more some type of
Connection.
and with.
The other thing that I've always believed, and I may not be data correct in this regard, is I would rather have a kid in my classroom, even if they're in refocus or whatever. If they're in my classroom, they're bound to get a whole lot more than if they're out in the office. Now that said, I also feel like the kid who's sitting there doing nothing is still listening. They're still hearing it. And I was willing to bet that the majority of my students, the kids that didn't want to do stuff, if I asked them, I bet they could answer just as well as some of my best students. They just didn't want to do it. But it didn't mean they weren't learning. And so if our job is to teach them, and granted he's not doing the work or whatever, you can't make, you can take a horse to water or lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I mean, there is some connection you could do with him, but ideally he is learning something by being in there.
Well, like you said about the kids that just keep asking, like you say, do these 1 through 5 and I'll get back to you. Like for students like that, is it okay to maybe make it not as long for them? I just want you to focus on this part, so it seems maybe more manageable.
So modified, yeah.
Yeah, and then get back to them there and check in.
Yeah, and I think you're looking for mastery, right, of a certain skill. So with some kid, it may be 20 it takes for you to see that. And with this guy, 5 is like 20 for another kid, right? And so, it's not something I would televise, but, and announce to anyone. But that's a relationship between you and him.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's showing understanding or she's showing understanding, then you're accomplishing what you need to accomplish. Right. So yeah.
I would also, if Mom is saying that you would do it up until about a year or so ago,
Or something.
find out as best you can, what was it? Was it that he got some feedback on his specific writing? If he's doing other things, but specifically with writing, there's some kind of block. Was it feedback that he got that he, whether it was a negative feedback or not, was internalized as being negative? Well, I can't do this, so I'm just not going to try. If there was something he wasn't comfortable sharing with writing, just whatever the case may be. But by identifying that piece, it'll also help to give some ideas on how to overcome that block for him.
Right,
That's a
it's in
great
everything.
point.
It is, yeah.
In every
It's in
subject or
everything.
just
Well,
writing?
writing's in everything.
True.
It's 4th grade.
So,
when are you
okay.
not writing right now?
Right,
So,
but it's
so it's kind of not that we don't do a lot of discussions and don't do it, but there is a block and I haven't been able to find it.
Too, I've heard
There's
kids
something.
say, well, that teacher told me that I would never blank. And, I had a teacher in high school that told me I would never pass college English. And the irony is I taught English, right? And then I had a teacher in 5th grade. I came in, it was free read, and my mom said I had a Nancy Drew book. And he said, "This is trash," and threw it. And my mom says I didn't pick up another book for years. So I'm wondering if the block was it somebody that said, "Oh, you're a terrible writer," or something that may have just, and he needs,
Teacher or another student.
yeah.
Yeah.
To another student.
I know that the counselor talks with him, that they have a relationship a little bit. I'll go out and do some more hunting, because usually I can get to them sooner, it seems, but I don't know, I'm just a little concerned
Yeah.
with this one.
Well, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be visiting classrooms too, just for my own schooling too. And it'll be interesting to see.
That's fine.
Okay, so the move in,
I
we
know-
won't do this.
I was just funny story, just a little quick, but one of my students came to me and said, "You're the best teacher ever, Miss Sister, and I miss you so much." This is from this year. And I go, "So what do you know?" I go, so tell me why. And it was, because you gave us nachos with jalapenos, and you gave me hot chocolate with marshmallows. I said, oh, wonderful. I said, so anything, do you remember about growing up 4 reading levels and doing all this? No, we don't celebrate. I'm sorry, I'm like,
That's
they're
so
talking
true.
with us, and it was like,
Yeah.
cool.
You never know what they're gonna love, you know?
That's right. Not true. Remember any of that at all? This was just recently. That's why I'm like, so I no. I mean, that's not pretty great.
He was so proud. So classroom design, proximity, classroom design, 2 steps away or 2 seats away, interior loop. Proximity, 45 degrees, 2 to 3 feet away. Queen Victoria. And the turn, move in, yeah, palms. And then, I don't know what students is. Oh, identify your students. I'm sure you could probably name them, your problem kids, off the top of your head. Don't yet. But thinking of them needs to come into consideration when you do your homework. So, who are your students needing the most accommodations? And keep in mind, I don't mean just 504 and IEPs. I mean the kids that need academic help. You know there's those kids that have never been targeted that probably should have been, right? And you know who they are. Or the kid that should have been in EL but wasn't. And so you're dealing with that. You know, you're dealing with that differential. And then academic needs and discipline needs. All of those things you need to, well, and I should probably have added EL on there. You need to know who they are, but you also need to identify them in your head and then make appropriate placements in your class setup. But knowing who they are, you're going to consider these things. This is all on Classroom too, so you don't have to write like crazy.
Okay.
Take a picture of your room as it is currently. Taking what we've talked about, you guys obviously aren't going to have to rearrange everything because you already have a lot of it. But take a picture after, even if you didn't move much. And then I want you to analyze, you're going to comment paragraph or so, how you've accommodated the students that needed more attention. Okay, how you've accommodated them and any changes you made to your classroom and why. Okay, make sense? I know you're not going to all change everything. I realize that. And this is the review that I just mentioned. How it's worked or changes you've made, and if you've seen any changes. The only thing is I'll be seeing you Thursday, so I would just say, just talk about the changes you're going to make or will make or did make, and how you've accommodated your kids, the list of kids that, obviously we can't see the names, so you don't need to give me a list. I need to trust that you've created a list and that you're making adjustments for them.
Like classroom setup adjustments, or just?
Yeah, like seating chart.
Okay.
Seating chart, or if you need to explain to me that you had to split these two up because, you know, they were behavior issues, and then what you did with them. It doesn't need to be real in depth. I want to know that you put some thought into it, and if it's something you already do, then it should be pretty easy. Just explain. There's an article that's attached called Classroom Arrangement. It's decently interesting. So you're going to write 10 key ideas. There's a place on, and this is all on Classroom under assignments, and the article's there as well. And then we are done, unless we have any questions. This is the eval. You can shoot it with your phone, and it'll show up also, that thing. Yes. It's also on your syllabus if you want to do it later. You guys have any questions? This is the most boring part of this class. I can't stand this stuff.
I'm cold.
I know it's good stuff. It's just not as fun to teach. You'll have to tell Caesar I was in here. I miss him. He's such a good kid. Huh?
won't recognize him now. Oh, he won, he was actually in the pole champ, and he won first place. And, they did in Redwood City. This past, yeah, this past Saturday.
No way.
Yeah, he was, and he finally got, and so now he's, I don't know what his place now, so now he's gonna be going to it again in August. So,
Wow. Did he finish school? Did he go?
oh yeah, in San Francisco State,
Yeah,
yeah, anthropology was his major.
really?
Yes.
Wow.